every night, just as everything around us starts to calm down. That's often when the noise in our minds gets the loudest. We have all experienced this lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, caught in a loop of endless thoughts. You might be thinking about something you regret doing earlier that day, or worrying about what tomorrow might bring. It's exhausting, right? You are not alone in this struggle. Overthinking can feel like running a mental marathon, and it's hard to stop once it starts. It's like having an itch you just can't scratch, and it can rob you of both a good night's sleep and your peace during the day. But here's the good news. There is a way to calm those loud, overwhelming thoughts. Today we're going to explore the ancient wisdom of Stoicism. Stoicism is a philosophy that's thousands of years old, but the advice it offers is still practical and helpful today. The goal here is not just to learn about history or old ideas. We're going to talk about real tools that you can use to lead a calmer and more focused life. So if you're tired of feeling like your mind is spinning out of control, stick with me. We'll explore how these timeless strategies from Stoicism can help bring peace and clarity into your life, even when the world feels chaotic. If you're enjoying what we're talking about and want more insights like this, I'd really appreciate it if you could do a simple and free favor. Just hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss any part of this video, because every moment is filled with useful tips to help quiet the noise in your mind. You know those moments when you're just sitting there and your mind is racing with a million what-ifs and maybes? You start worrying about things that might happen or things you wish you had done differently. Before you know it, hours have gone by and you've made no progress at all. It feels like you're stuck in place. That's the kind of problem we're tackling here today. Stoicism, this ancient philosophy we're talking about, teaches us a really powerful solution to this problem. It encourages us to prioritize action instead of getting lost in endless thinking. Overthinking can feel like quicksand, keeping us trapped in one spot, but taking action is like a rope that pulls us out and moves us forward. A great example of this comes from the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius. He once said, "The secret of all victory lies in the organization of the non-obvious." What he meant was that it's not just about thinking deeply or analyzing every detail. It's about doing the things that truly make a difference in your life. So how do we apply this wisdom in our daily lives? It starts by understanding that action, even small steps, helps us make progress. On the other hand, overthinking usually leads us nowhere and keeps us stuck. When we focus on taking meaningful action instead of getting trapped in endless thought, we can actually break free from the mental fog and make real, positive changes in our lives. Let's dive deeper into how we can make this shift from overthinking to action and live a life that's more peaceful and productive. Have you ever noticed that when you finally decide to take even a small step forward, it feels like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders? That's because taking action is freeing. It breaks the chains of procrastination and self-doubt. Instead of feeling stuck, you start to feel like you're moving forward. Let me share a personal story with you. Once I had an idea for a project that I was really excited about. I spent weeks thinking about it, planning every little detail in my head. But here's the problem. It never went anywhere. I was so focused on making everything perfect that I didn't take any real action. I was trapped in something called analysis paralysis, where I kept overthinking everything instead of just starting. But the moment I finally decided to take action, even small steps, like writing down some notes or talking to a friend about the idea, things started to change. It was not perfect, but it was progress. And progress feels so much better than being stuck. The Stoics, the ancient philosophers we've been talking about, had a similar way of thinking. They believed that while we can control our actions, we can't always control the outcome. Instead of worrying about every possible future scenario, we should focus on what we can do right now. This reduces the feeling of being overwhelmed because, let's be honest, we can't control everything. That might happen in the future. Every time you take action, no matter how small, you learn something new. Each step brings fresh insights and sometimes new challenges, but there's always movement. You're always moving forward, and that's what matters. Every action is a chance to adapt, adjust, and keep learning. Here's another important thing to remember. Action builds confidence. Each time you take a step, you prove to yourself that you can overcome your fears. You start to build momentum, and suddenly, things that seemed impossible don't feel so impossible anymore. They start to look like things you can actually achieve. So remember, action is powerful. It moves you forward, teaches you lessons, and builds your confidence. Even if things are not perfect, you're making progress, and that's what really counts. In Stoicism, there's a lot of talk about living according to nature. And one important part of nature is learning and growing from what we do, not just from what we think. So, what small action can you take today? It doesn't have to be something big. Maybe it's making that phone call you've been avoiding, sending an email you've been putting off, or even just organizing your workspace. These might seem like tiny steps, but tiny steps are still steps, and every step counts. The key is to keep moving forward. Don't let your thoughts stop you from taking action. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." What he meant is that we often make things seem harder than they are because we're afraid to start. But when we dare to take action, things start to get easier. By following the Stoic way of valuing action over endless thinking, we can live more fully, more bravely, and with a clearer sense of direction. So let's put those plans into action. Don't let overthinking hold you back. Once you start doing, you'll be surprised at how much more you can achieve. This idea comes directly from Stoic teachings, especially from Marcus Aurelius. In his meditations, he often reminded himself to keep his ego in check. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This was his way of focusing on what really matters in life without getting caught up in his own pride or self-importance. In short, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, take action, and let go of overthinking. When we shift from thinking to doing, we empower ourselves to live a more meaningful and purposeful life. So why is realizing that you're not that special actually a good thing? It's about understanding that the world doesn't revolve around us and our actions as much as we might think. Most people are too busy dealing with their own lives to worry about what we're doing. Once you fully understand this, it can be a game changer. It means you can stop overthinking about how others see you. Think about it. Have you ever hesitated to post something online because you were worried about what people would think? Or maybe you've held back from starting a new project or going for a job because you were scared of criticism or failure? You might have believed that everyone would notice and judge you. Here's a Stoic wake-up call. Most people won't even remember what you did a few days later. Everyone is too busy with their own problems and challenges. This doesn't mean your actions don't matter, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to do your best. But it does mean you can relax a bit, knowing that one mistake won't be the focus of everyone's attention. This idea helps us break away from the belief that everyone is watching and judging our every move. This belief can lead to overthinking and anxiety, but realizing it's not true is incredibly freeing. You can make your own choices, try new things, and even make mistakes, and the world won't come crashing down because of it. This gives you the space to experiment, learn, and live without the constant fear of being judged. And this is where Stoicism really helps. It teaches us humility and reminds us to focus on improving ourselves, not because we want applause or are afraid of criticism, but simply for the sake of becoming better. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, believed deeply in leading a life of virtue and staying true to yourself, rather than living for the approval or validation of others. His teachings remind us that the next time we find ourselves overthinking about how others might judge our actions, we should remember this simple but powerful lesson. You're not that special in the eyes of the world. And surprisingly, that's actually a good thing. This realization means you are free to live your life more fully and authentically, without constantly worrying about how you're being perceived. It's not about devaluing yourself or thinking you don't matter. It's about understanding that the spotlight is not always on you, and that's a huge relief. You don't need to live with the constant fear of judgment. Instead, you can use that space and energy to focus on what truly matters to you, rather than wasting time worrying about every little judgment others might make. This allows you to engage with your real passions, to pursue what makes you happy, and to let go of trivial worries. Often, when we compare ourselves to others, whether it's their successes, their appearances, or even their social media posts, we set ourselves up for disappointment and unhappiness. It's like we're measuring our own worth against a standard that keeps changing depending on who we're comparing ourselves to at the moment. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius and others, taught that we should focus on what's within our control. And guess what? Other people's lives, their opinions, and their successes are not within our control. Epictetus, another famous Stoic philosopher, once said, "Focus on what you can control and let go of what you cannot." This advice is powerful because when we waste our time and energy focusing on other people's lives, we are pouring our precious resources into things we have no power to change or influence. Let me paint you a picture to help explain this better. Imagine you're having a really good day. You're proud of something you've accomplished, whether it's a big achievement or just something small but meaningful to you. Then, you open up Instagram or Facebook, and you see someone else's highlight reel, pictures of their vacations, their perfect homes, or their recent achievements. Suddenly, what you were proud of starts to feel less important, less special. That's the trap of comparison. What the Stoics teach us is to stop measuring our worth by comparing ourselves to others. Instead, they encourage us to anchor our sense of self-worth in our own values and our own progress. It's not about trying to outdo others or feeling like we're falling behind. It's about staying true to ourselves and focusing on what really matters to us. This mindset shift isn't just about making yourself feel better in the moment. It's about fundamentally changing how we view success and happiness. Instead of seeking external validation and approval from others, Stoicism teaches us to find internal validation. This means that our happiness and sense of accomplishment come from within. from knowing that we are living according to our values, doing what matters to us, and making progress on our own terms. By following this approach, you'll feel more grounded, more at peace, and more in control of your own life. You'll no longer be chasing the ever-changing standards of others, but instead, you'll be focused on living a life that's meaningful to you. So let go of the need for constant comparison and external validation. Focus on your own path, your own growth, and what truly makes you happy. That's the Stoic way to live with purpose and peace. When you live by the principle of not comparing yourself to others and focusing on your personal growth, it completely changes the way you view life. Instead of always feeling like you're in competition with everyone around you, you begin to appreciate your own journey for what it is: a unique path, filled with its own ups and downs. This mindset shift is incredibly freeing because you no longer feel the need to measure your success against someone else's achievements. You start to see that your life isn't a race, and it doesn't need to be compared to someone else's timeline or milestones. Imagine how liberating that would feel. When you stop comparing yourself to others, you can truly celebrate your own successes, whether they're big or small. You don't have to let someone else's achievements make your own accomplishments feel less important. By shifting your thinking from comparison to self-reflection, you'll find that joy starts to come more naturally. You'll begin to notice the blessings in your own life and be grateful for them without feeling the need to compare them to what someone else has or does. So the next time you find yourself falling into the trap of comparison, take a step back. Remind yourself that your worth isn't defined by how you measure up against others. It's defined by how well you live according to your own values, principles, and efforts. Instead of spending energy comparing yourself to others, direct that energy towards your own personal growth and goals. This is a game changer, especially if you struggle with overthinking or constantly worrying about how you compare to others. Now let's talk about the pursuit of perfection. Many of us chase perfection in everything we do, but ironically, this drive often leads not to more success, but to more stress, disappointment, and even paralysis. When we set impossible standards for ourselves, every little mistake or setback can feel like a massive failure. It's a recipe for constant anxiety and overthinking. The Stoics understood this well. They taught that aiming for traditional perfection, flawlessness, and completeness is both unrealistic and unnecessary. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, put it simply: we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. What he meant was that our idea of perfection causes us more stress than the actual imperfections in our lives. Think about it. How many times have you stressed out about getting something just right, only to realize later that the anxiety you felt was far worse than the actual situation? Stoicism teaches us to embrace imperfection as a natural part of being human. By accepting that we are imperfect, we can free ourselves from the unrealistic expectations that lead to overthinking. This doesn't mean you shouldn't try to improve. On the contrary, Stoicism encourages personal growth. However, improvement is seen as an ongoing process, not something that must be flawless from the start. Mistakes aren't failures, they're opportunities to learn and grow. Imagine how much more willing you'd be to start a new project or skill if you knew mistakes were not only expected but actually valuable. This mindset allows you to take risks, be more creative, and grow without the fear of falling short of perfection. Marcus Aurelius, another Stoic philosopher, famously wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He's saying that obstacles and challenges aren't just things to overcome. They're essential parts of the journey that help us grow. Every mistake or setback teaches us something new and pushes us to become better. When you let go of the myth of perfection, you're not just reducing overthinking. You're opening yourself up to a world of possibilities where growth becomes something joyful and exciting. It's also important to understand that our emotions, while natural, don't always reflect the truth of a situation. Stoicism teaches that while emotions are part of being human, they shouldn't control our decisions or how we see reality. Marcus Aurelius often advised people to step back and examine their feelings to see if they were based on facts or if they were letting their emotions distort their judgment. He famously said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about the last time you were overwhelmed by emotion. Maybe you were anxious about a big event or upset after an argument. In those moments, emotions can feel all-consuming, as if they define everything about the situation. But here's the thing. Emotions are temporary, and they can sometimes trick us into overreacting. Stoicism is not about ignoring your feelings. It's about acknowledging them without letting them take control. It's about responding with reason and wisdom, rather than letting emotions cloud your judgment. For example, imagine you didn't get the job you wanted. Your initial emotional response might be to feel like you're not good enough, or that you'll never succeed. But if you take a step back and look at the situation more rationally, you might see that this rejection is actually an opportunity to improve your skills or explore new options. By not letting your emotions take over, you give yourself the chance to approach situations more calmly and constructively. Stoicism also teaches that much of our stress comes from trying to control things we can't. Epictetus said, "Some things are in our control and others are not." This simple truth is key to living a calmer, more resilient life. Often, we get caught up in worrying about outcomes that we can't predict or control. But when you shift your focus from the outcome to the effort you put in, you free yourself from unnecessary stress. For example, if you're starting a new fitness routine, don't just focus on the end goal, like losing a certain amount of weight. Instead, focus on the process, eating healthier, exercising regularly, and enjoying the improvements in your energy and mood. These are things you can control. The weight loss will come as a side effect, but it won't define your success. This way of thinking helps you stay motivated and resilient, even when things don't go perfectly according to plan. Finally, Stoicism teaches us to live in the present moment. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the importance of confining yourself to the present. The past is already gone, and the future is uncertain, but the present is where life happens. By focusing on the here and now, we reduce overthinking and increase our ability to enjoy life fully. In summary, Stoicism gives us practical tools to live better lives. By letting go of comparison, embracing imperfection, managing our emotions wisely, and focusing on the present, we can reduce overthinking and find more peace and happiness in our daily lives.